Who is Lorgar Aurelian? Lorgar Aurelian, or the Urizen, is the primarch of the Word Bearers, one of the original 20 Space Marine legions. Fiercely religious and prone to fanaticism, Lorgar yearned for a greater meaning to his existence besides conquest. This quest and the tragic events that befell his perfect city of Monarchia led him to become the first primarch to become seduced by the powers of chaos. Hiding his new allegiance for many years, he helped to orchestrate the events that led to the Horus Heresy. He has since ascended to demonhood and bears the self-appointed titles of Archpriest of the Primordial Truth and Minister of Chaos Absolute. Lorgar vanished from the Gene Labs in Luna while still an infant, along with other 20 Primarchs. After his spiriting away by the forces of chaos, he was found on a desert feudal planet of Colchis, a nomadic tribe of outcasts known as the Declined under the chieftain Fan Morgul, found the infant's shattered capsule and took him in. They named the child Lorgar, or the Raincaller. 17 days later, Lorgar, already grown to the size of a young child, was discovered by Cor Firin, an exiled priest of the Covenant. Immediately sensing greatness in the boy and believing him blessed by the powers, Firin convinced Lorgar to become his disciple and promptly killed Fan Morgul and his tribe to cover up the boy's identity. Despite enduring Firin's vicious abuses, Lorgar fervently believed in the Covenant and researched every aspect of it that he could find, coming to the conclusion that there was the one that binded the polytheistic covenant together. Firin dismissed such notions initially and often abused Lorgar physically and emotionally. At the same time, Firin saw something special in Lorgar and attempted to manipulate him in order to rule over Colchis. Nonetheless, Lorgar remained intensely loyal to Firin and even saved his life in a crew mutiny. Lorgar also grew close to those in Firin's caravan, which included the captain Axita and slave Naro. Despite Firin's abuse, Lorgar quickly surpassed his master. He became a devout preacher, his skill in oratory and the power of his charisma winning him many followers, rising to the position of Archpriest of the Godsworn. After saving Firin's life in the crew mutiny, Lorgar named the new bearer of the word by the priest. Lorgar's fame quickly spread thereafter. He began liberating slaves across Colchis. However, as Lorgar grew in standing amongst the people, members of the Covenant began to grow jealous of his popularity. Lorgar's youth was plagued by visions of a mighty warrior in gleaming bronze armor coming to Colchis, a cyclopean giant in blue robes standing beside him. At one point, the visions reached such intensity that Lorgar claimed that the prophesied return of the Colchis god was soon to occur. He began to preach this news to the people of Colchis, causing disruptions to the rule of the Covenant as people converted to his beliefs. Lorgar's enemies in the Covenant saw this as the opportunity they had been waiting for to remove the threat that Lorgar was to the status quo, declaring him a heretic. Those who came forward to arrest Lorgar were killed by his followers. The Covenant split into two factions, the followers of the Old Faith and the Brotherhood of the Lorgar. A holy war of immense proportions known as the Schism Wars erupted. Eventually, the entire population of Colchis was forced to choose a side. This war lasted 6 years, and Lorgar eventually amassed a massive army that marched to the capital city of Varadesh. After a fiery sermon before the city gates, they opened to him, with lower priests of the Colchis presenting the corpses of the Covenant Exliarch and Hierarchs as a gift. After taking Varadesh, Lorgar's forces moved from city to city, taking them either peacefully or in some cases putting everyone to the sword for their heresy in refusing the one. After several years of fighting, the last city to stand against Lorgar's army was Galhavria, which was protected by the Dark Age of Technology-era storm generator. Performing a miracle, Lorgar approached the maelstrom around the city and caused the storm to part, allowing his army to swarm through the gap and capture Galhavria. With that, Lorgar was the Lord of Colchis, but proclaimed that they still had much to do. Possibly as part of his conflict, or after it, one in three of Colchis were said to turn against Lorgar, and the first great purge was conducted by the Brotherhood's fanatically loyal warrior monks handpicked by Lorgar. Less than a year after victory, Lorgar's people, a landing craft carrying the Emperor and Magnus the Red, along with 2 tactical squads of Thousand Sun Space Marines, descended from orbit and landed near the temple. Lorgar was said to immediately recognize his people as the ones in his visions, and swore his fealty to his father and creator. Every facet of the Covenant's belief structure was reorganized towards the worship of the Emperor as their savior, and the people of Colchis united behind their new god. The elaborate celebrations and displays of piety lasted for months, although it was said that the Emperor did not approve of this, wishing to rejoin the Great Crusade as soon as possible. At the conclusion of the celebrations, Lorgar was made commander of the 17th Space Marine Legion, which was known as the Imperial Heralds, but was soon to be renamed the Word Bearers. Lorgar led his legion throughout the Great Crusade, the Word Bearers seeking to eliminate all blasphemy and heresy within the new Imperium. Ancient texts and icons were burned. The construction of vast monuments and cathedrals venerating the Emperor was supervised. The greatest chaplains of the Word Bearers produced enormous works in the divinity and righteousness of the Emperor, and gave grand speeches and sermons to the masses. The progress of the Word Bearers was slow, but domination of the defeated was complete. At some point during this period, Lorgar penned the Laudatio Divinitas, postulating the worship of the Emperor as a divine being. This book would later become instrumental in the founding of the imperial cult. However, the Emperor was not pleased with the lack of progress the Word Bearers were showing, and was even more dismayed at their religious zeal. One of the main goals of the Great Crusade was to free humanity from the ignorance of religion, and so the Emperor personally reprimanded Lorgar, informing him that the mission of the Space Marines was for battle, not faith. Thus, the Emperor ordered the Ultramarines to destroy Lorgar's world-building project in Moncaria. Worse still, the Emperor, accompanied by Robert Guilliman, forced Lorgar and his entire legion to kneel before him, humiliating the Primarch. Lorgar was said to mourn the Emperor's command for a month, speaking to nobody save Erebus and Firan, and wearing only hair-shirt robes. The Emperor was about to reprimand the Legion again for their lack of action when news reached him that the Word Bearers had gone back to the offensive, and this time the worlds fell before them in rapid order. It was this event, roughly 43 years before the beginning of the Horus Heresy, that turned the Word Bearers to chaos. While as Lorgar brooded over the Emperor's approach, Firan and Erebus, his top lieutenants, whispered to Lorgar of the great chaos gods, beings that welcomed, even demanded, zealous worship and devotion. Lorgar was slowly poisoned against the Emperor by Firan and Erebus, who were appointed Master of the Faith and First Chaplain respectively, and were tasked with converting the entire Legion to chaos. After a failed attempt to get answers on the nature of the universe from his close friend and brother Magnus, Lorgar decided to go on a pilgrimage to discover the truth for himself. Eventually, Lorgar's psychic abilities lured him to newly discovered Cadia, insisting he heard a voice calling for him. There, he encountered Egethel, the Ascended, who showed him the primordial truth of the universe. Engethel convinced Lorgar that humanity had to accept and welcome the gods of chaos, and failed to do so would have their race share the same fate as Eldar. Finally, after being shown a horrifying vision of the future, Lorgar was finally converted by their ruinous powers. The Word Bearers came to venerate the gods of chaos, but instead of throwing their support to one god, they worshiped chaos undivided, a pantheon composing the 4 chaos gods. Later, Lorgar journeyed with Engethel, the Ascended, deeper into the Eye of Terror, where he defeated an Eldar avatar upon a shattered crown world, and went on to best the mighty Bloodthirster, Angarath, and the Unbound in battle, a sign he was chosen by the Dark Gods. After the fight, Lorgar met Kairos, Fate Weaver, who told him that Lorgar now had a choice. He could achieve either personal vengeance for his shame by slaying Guilliman in the future, but thus doom Horus and his rebellion, or put personal satisfaction aside and taste the shame and bitterness forever, but work for the greater goal of illuminating humanity with primordial truth. Fate Weaver made it clear how vital this decision would be, as this was a rare occasion where both his heads spoke the truth. Contemplating his course of action, the last stage of this pilgrimage, Lorgar demanded to see a vision of the future if the forces of chaos lost the upcoming war with the Imperium. What Lorgar saw changed him forever. Now an agent of chaos, Lorgar dispatched his trusted subordinate Erebus to Davin. There, the first chaplain orchestrated a series of events in cooperation with Davin Chaos cult priests that saw Horus corrupted by the ruinous powers. The Legion kept their new devotion secret until War Master Horus declared his own faith in chaos and began the galactic civil war known as the Horus Heresy. The Word Bearers quickly joined the rebellion, and many of the worlds they had conquered since their conversion turned as well, having been corrupted by the Word Bearers during their conquest. During the Dropside Massacre, Lorgar and his Word Bearers revealed their true colors along with the Night Lords, Alpha Legion, and Iron Warriors. Lorgar engaged Korax in combat, with the Raven Guard Primarch having the upper hand until the intervention of Kurtz. During the Traitor War Council after the battle on Itzvan V, Lorgar encountered a demonically possessed Fulgrim, and a rage viciously assaulted the corrupted Primarch. Only the intervention of Horus himself stayed Lorgar's hand, for Lorgar saw total demonic possession as opposed to a shared bond between vessel and demon as a perversion of the natural order. The majority of the Legion was ordered by Horus to see the entanglement and possible destruction of the Ultramarines Legion, so that their vast forces could not be brought to bear against Horus's march towards Holy Terra. This was a task the Word-Bearers took up with joy, for as the Emperor had chastised the Word-Bearers for their faith, the Ultramarines had become his favored legion. The assault on Ultramar was led by Pharon, who swore to utterly destroy the Ultramarines. The Word-Bearers ambushed the Ultramarines at Calth, an attack which eventually turned against them. When help from the Ultramarines' homeworld, Makaraj, arrived, the Word-Bearers were rooted from the system. During the heresy on the orders of Horus, Lorgar would team up in the Shadow Crusade with Angron and his world eaters to strike the Ultramar in an attempt to distract the Ultramarines in conjunction with the Battle of Calth. Lorgar and Angron were on tense terms at first, with the Red Angel delaying the advance by butchering strategically worthless worlds. However, the two avoided inter-legion war with a Dark Eldar assault unified them against a common enemy. Lorgar recognized Angron's instability and hidden sorrow for his forced departure from Nuceria, recommended that Angron return to his adopted homeworld to find a sense of closure. Lorgar also had the intention to summon a great warp storm known as the Rune Storm, which would cut off the rest of Ultramar from the Imperium. When the two Primarchs arrived in Nuceria, however, they discovered that the slave lords of Nuceria had massacred Angron's comrades and told the population that he had fled during their last stand. Infuriated, Angron ordered the World Eaters and Word-Bearers purge Nuceria for its population, and Lorgar willingly took part in the slaughter. Eventually, the Ultramarines and Guilliman himself arrived, pursuing the traitors from Calth. And the Lord of Makaraj battled, first Lorgar, then Angron. However, this had all gone according to Lorgar's plan, who used the immense rage Angron was emitting to begin the Coronate ritual, which transformed the World Eater's Primarch into a monstrous avatar of chaos, allowing him to overcome the slowly debilitating effects of the Butcher's nails. Following the Shadow Crusade, Lorgar began to believe that Horus was too weak to lead the forces of chaos to victory over the Emperor. He was disgusted by Horus's refusal to submit before the power of the gods, and had foreseen that Horus would lead the traitor war effort to defeat. Ultimately, Lorgar became secretly committed to killing Horus and taking his place as War Master of Chaos and Anointed of the Gods. Lorgar made his move following Horus's fall at Beta Garmin, appearing in the vengeful spirit with Zardu Layak. Though Horus was comatose, he agreed that traitors needed to be assembled at Ulanor in preparation for the drive on Terra. However, not all of the traitor Primarchs could be found, nor were they all obeying the summons. Thus, Lorgar proposed that Perturbo journey to find Angron while he commit himself to finding Fulgrim. Using an oracle disciple of Cyrene, Valination, as a guide, Lorgar, Layak, and a small force of word-bearers entered the webway in search of Fulgrim. They successfully navigated its treacherous corridors to enter the Eye of Terror, where they found themselves before the palace of Slanesh itself. Inside, they found Fulgrim and Kari engaged in debauchery. Fulgrim refuses to leave his delights and return to the war effort, forcing the two sides to battle. As Lorgar holds off Fulgrim, Zardu Layak utters and return to the war, utters the true name of the newly transformed demon Primarch. Layak had learned the name from a ritual Lorgar conducted, but due to the total amnesia it would eventually give the name's bearer, he had put the burden onto the Dark Apostle instead. Fulgrim was bound to Layak's will by the name's utterance, and Lorgar now had a pawn with which to slay Horus with. After gathering the desperate Emperor's children together, the two legions arrived at Ulanor for Horus's muster. Horus had by this point recovered thanks to the sacrifice of Malgahurst, and Lorgar revealed his plan to usurp the War Master. After sacrificing large amounts of mortal servants, Lorgar planned to unleash a psychic scream that would disorient Horus, then have Zayak order Fulgrim to attack. The word-bearers and Emperor's children orbiting Ulanor would finish off the sons of Horus, leaving the Lorgar in control of the traitor war effort. However, Lorgar's coup quickly fell apart as Actea had tipped Horus off to his treachery. Upon meeting Horus on the Ulanor Lorgar, which is immediately assailed before he could unleash his psychic assault, Zardu Layak freed Fulgrim from his bindings instead of ordering him to attack. Lorgar was beaten mercilessly by Horus, who threw his weapon and demanded that he stand and fight. Lorgar refused to fight and instead expressed pity at the monstrosity Horus had become since his recovery, consisting of an ever-shifting form with a maw of dark energy at its core. Horus ordered Lorgar to leave his sight, pledging to kill him if he ever returned. The word-bearers under Lorgar's command followed Layak, would continue to serve Horus. Lorgar left for destinations unknown, proclaiming that Horus was doomed to failure due to his weakness. As the word-bearers battled across Ultima Segmentum, the rest of the word-bearers were led by Layak to Terra, where Horus and his forces were repulsed and defeated after a 55-day siege. The Legion took refuge within the post-eye of Terror and the Maelstrom. Vast wounds in space were the Immaterium leaked into reality. Eventually, the atrocities committed by the word-bearers allowed for Lorgar's ascension to demonhood, becoming the equal of a god in the eyes of his legion. It is said his birth scream echoed across the Immaterium with triumphant vindication, his faith and devotion rewarded with immortality and embrittled power. He has since isolated himself within the Templum Efficio on the demon world of Sakaris, where he has remained for thousands of years, forbidding anyone to interrupt his meditation. Lorgar temporarily broke his exile to aid word-bearers against the monstrosity that was hunting them. The creature was eventually revealed to be Korax, who had become mutated by the powers of the warp during his quest for vengeance against the traitor Primarchs. Lorgar and Korax engage in a duel once more, with the Raven Lord dominating the engagement and forcing Lorgar to withdraw through the portal he had arrived in. As the portal between them closed, Korax stated that he now had Lorgar's scent and would hunt him down. After 10,000 years of seclusion into the warp, Lorgar is finally rumored to have returned at the close of the 41st millennium and formation of the Great Rift. It is said that he has been seen walking mortal realms in terrible splendor, preaching the word of chaos at the head of a massive word-bearer's force.